We'll try again. I will call to order a special budget meeting of the Wellington Board of Selectmen. It is January 24th, 2022 at 5:32 p.m. All right, so you'll note that while this was a virtual meeting, I invited any of our department heads who wanted to join in person to join us downstairs. So I came down here for the meeting. Sometimes when we're open, it doesn't lend them to be able to participate with the public here. All right, so you both should have in your inbox, hot off the presses, our very rough draft of our budget. I want to start by saying our business office works incredibly hard all year round, especially this time of year where both the Board of Education and the town need completed budgets at the same time. And COVID-19 has certainly affected all of our departments, this being one of them. So Donna is working diligently, but we still have some things we have to work on in this budget. So Donna, thank you for all your hard work. This is not an easy feat for sure. So with that, you should both see in front of you a budget currently that represents a $584,196 increase and 15.8%. I'll start by telling you that the salaries are, they are not all aligned with the contract that we're negotiating. They are very rough estimates because we're still waiting to ratify that contract. I won't get into discussions of dollar amounts and percentages on those. I will touch on some where there are different increases that don't rely on just that. So we will true those up once the contract has been ratified, and we can do some work on that. That will take Donna some time. So I'm going to go department by department, and then we can go back and answer some questions. And any of our department heads that are here can respond to those. So I'll start with the Selectmen's budget. You'll see some changes. There's an overall decrease in salary for the, it's listed as office manager salary. You recall when Robin left, we replaced that with administrative assistant. I will tell you, I am suggesting that we increase this from part-time at 30 hours to full-time at 35 hours. And an additional 5 weeks at 40 hours. The work that comes out of the Selectmen's office, as we all know, is more than just servicing that one department. There are many things within the entire town, specifically the town office building, that are coordinated through that office. So what we found since Robin moved down the hall, no surprise to us, 30 hours is just not enough. And with the added increase. So that salary, again, it's less than what it had been prior to Robin being there, but still an increase overall from this current fiscal year. And the 5 hours a week, the 5 weeks at 40 hours is to allow for some additional time, specifically during budget season, when Kelsey is helping a little bit everywhere. Additionally, CIP, and as we have ARPA needs as well, which I think that should cover it. And in the excuse me, in the insurances line item, that will reflect a change from part-time to full-time insurance. You'll see an increase in advertising in the Selectmen's budget. I did a 5-year average. And so kind of brought that up. We know we spend a little bit more. You never know exactly what we're going to spend depending on the number of town meetings needed. But I went ahead and used a 5-year average there. I will tell you our dues at CCM and CROG remained flat once again this year. So they are invaluable resources to the town. And so I'm happy they're able to do that with no additional cost increase. And we did, I did increase the Memorial Day and car show from 1,000 to 1,400. We supply flags for Memorial Day. They are incredibly expensive. And I'm not even sure this will be enough this year, as the cost of almost every good and service we are looking at has increased. But I know that $1,400 would be more in line with the cost we saw last year. We didn't have our traditional ceremonies, so we didn't spend as much last year. So while I'm asking for more, I anticipate a more normal year this spring. We'll move on to the finance department. Right now, you only see salaries in there, and you'll see the assistant business manager. That's the new position that we added, so you'll see that increase there. Donna, do you anticipate increases in your software this year?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll work to finish those up, but know that that department will increase regardless, because we did add the position. So over the current fiscal year, we're going to see a percentage increase there. The assessor department, excuse me, they've had an increased cost in QDS and vision services. You'll see that noted under computer support and under assessor supplies for a need for new pricing books. Correct. So Walter mentioned, and you see in his cover letter, the potential to have some of that electronic, but with the statutory requirement to keep these things for X number of years. Not sure what direction that's going to go, but one would hope as we move into a more technological world, they'll find a way to adjust that.
Erica, before the documents went out for the meeting, Walter referred to a spreadsheet. I didn't see that in the attachment. I don't know if that was inadvertently left off or what.
What are the numbers that you see in here? So he had what department heads gave to me were their numbers, individual, like just their departments, and they're plugged into this.
They're plugged into this latest spreadsheet.
Correct.
Okay.
So what you'll see, if he referenced personal property audits, you'll see that $5,000 there. Computer support at 21, and you'll see the increase.
Yeah, he was referring to a spreadsheet. I didn't see that in the initial handout, but I have to admit, I didn't get a chance to look at the stuff that was just sent a few minutes before this meeting. Okay,
That's
thank you.
You're welcome. In addition, I would like to, and you do not see it reflected here, as I've been working with the town of Bolton, and I've just gotten some figures. This particular budget you see in front of you reflects everything staying status quo in the assessor's department. Currently, we have Walter, who works in another town full-time with us, on average 10 hours a week. I believe the needs of the department and the needs of our residents would call for more time. And so we've been talking with the town of Bolton. You'll know we currently share a service, we contract service of their building official. The discussion we're having is having a shared assessor that would be split half between each town. So we would each get 2.5 days of time, which would put someone here many more days. The cost is significantly different. We're looking at a $90,000 salary, and with benefits, the total for a staff member would be $121,788. And if we were to split that with Bolton, it's just over $60,000. So a big difference from where we're at now, but I believe the department would be better served with more time. Walter has a full-time job, right? So I don't know what he thinks in summers, but if it were something you were interested in, want to work in 2 towns, certainly. But I think the department, the town should be looking in a direction of more time in the assessor's office, not less. That is my cell there. We'll move on to the revenue department, tax department. No change with the assistant salary. You will see in the revenue collector salary an increase that would represent an increase in hourly pay up to 28 roughly. This is a salary position, so it would look like roughly $28 an hour. This is more in line with towns that are similar to us. Went out to CCM to look at some salary study. Currently, if we made no change in this next fiscal year, our revenue collector would be making less per hour than the assistant tax collector, who is in her office 18 hours a week. So I think we've talked about this before, Liza and I, before Jim, about needing to take a look at the needs of staffing and retaining staff. And this is one of them where our pay doesn't necessarily align.
Erica?
Yes, Jim.
When I was last in the town offices there, the revenue collector was working on a certification. Do you have any update on that?
Yes, so she passed all of her coursework. She can't be certified until it's March or end of March, sometime mid-March. She has to be here for 3 years to be certified, working in that world, and that is not our rule. That is in order to be certified as a tax collector, but she is, as long as she's still with us, then she will be a certified tax collector. So she took her last course in December and the cumulative exam and aced it. Good job. So she's worked really, really hard at that. So.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Welcome. So it shows a different increase in salary for revenue collector. You'll see increases across the board in this department. The QDS and LexisNexis products that we use in both assessors and the tax office have increased their fees. So you see those reflected. The supplies line item is an increase due to the need to purchase 2 new check scanners. And so that should be a 1-year purchase. I don't anticipate we would need anything else. We would hope they'd give us at least 5 years of life. So next year we should be able to see that line item go back down, but that increase would provide new check scanners for that department.
Are we replacing check scanners or are those totally new?
We're replacing.
Okay.
They are definitely finicky. They have their moments. And it's essential we do deposits on a nightly basis. All right, the next department is town council. You'll see no increase there. We can keep things flat. Obviously, we don't always anticipate unexpected legal expenses. And because of that, we don't budget for them. So I'm proposing we keep that line item flat. The town clerk salary, these numbers for the town clerk and the assistant, certainly the percentages are going to look very different to you. These are truing them up to the staff that are in that department now. So if you look at the current 21-22 year, that's not reflective of the salary that Robin makes. So we're just truing that up. And then the fill-in, Robin has asked for an increase in the fill-in line item. And you can see in her cover letter that will cover times where they both need to be out of the office for either trainings in their office, or right now, quite frankly, we're trying to plan for potential COVID-related illnesses. And if COVID were transmitted through this building, we'd be in big trouble. So this would allow somebody else to be able to come in and assist. And Robin has had good luck with other town clerks, either retired from Willington or retired outside of here that have come in here to help. So those are those increases. The assistant line item does calculate for some additional hours. So right now she works 24 hours a week. This would give several weeks of time where she would work 30 hours and then 29 hours, I think, Robin, and would cover for Robin's vacation time when she's out of the office.
Do you know the clerk's certification status, Erica?
She is
town-
in progress, and Robin had, I know she has 3 years. COVID has certainly made things very difficult. They're not on the same kind of structure that the tax office is. So the tax office is, their certification is 4 courses. We know when she's completed each course, tested on it, and ready to move on to the next. The tax collector, they take all the courses as they can, and they take 1 cumulative exam. Robin, can you give us an update on where you are? I'm just gonna get her microphone. Oh, she's gonna call in. I know she and I just spoke about this. I don't want to misspeak.
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, sorry, I'm having audio issues. I am currently taking town clerk classes for the certification. The 3-year time span that it takes for the certification to happen is basically is when they offer the classes. It's classes on all of the chapters of the town clerk handbook. There are a total of, I believe there's 6 chapters in the town clerk handbook, and they offer 1 or 2 classes per year. I have currently taken 3 classes so far. So, and you're not allowed to take the certification until you've completed all the classes.
And Robin's
Okay.
about a year and a half, less than a year and a half in.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yeah.
you're welcome.
You'll see in purchase
I don't know.
services, there's a large increase there of 35.25. And if you've heard of Robin's cover letter, that will cover the cost of a grantor grantee land recording binder for the years 2010 to present. So they're permanent records that we have to keep, and this will allow us to continue to do so. An increase in office supplies and miscellaneous supplies. We did not, I apologize. Well, miscellaneous isn't really miscellaneous, is it? And Robin has added dollars for legal notices, as the town clerk's office is responsible for several legal notices that come out of their budget during the calendar year. All right, we're gonna move on to TOB. Get to page 5, town office operations. So a couple of things that stand out here. You'll see the maintenance and miscellaneous. There's a regular maintenance in the town office building. The increase of 14,900 represents 2 items: replacing the vault in the town clerk's office. We are required to keep those records, and they have to be maintained in a particular temperature in the vault. We had issue with the vault in the spring or summer, had it repaired, and it was recommended to us to be replaced. It's under the threshold for CIP, so I felt the right place to put it was in our budget. I see this being a one-time increase over the course of hopefully many years. The additional dollars is for just about $4,000 to put some lighting on the back parking lot. To be lighting on the building that would light up that parking lot at nighttime. If you've ever been here at night and have to go out the back, it's not very lit. If you've ever been here at night alone and have to go out the back, there's no lighting because there's now nothing from inside the building. So for a multitude of reasons, and safety being one of them, I think we should do that. I would like, if possible, this is something I think we could utilize budget funds this year if we could find the dollars. But not knowing if we have them just yet, I think it's important to plan for it. And again, this is under the CIP threshold, so it's in our regular operating budget. Computer expense, you'll see an increase there. I can tell you our Novus IT services are increasing 3%, as well as some of our hosting services, including the new Microsoft Office project that we hopefully very soon are rolling over to. Again, like just about every other good and service, we're seeing a significant increase in cost. If there's anything we are going to cut, this is not where I would suggest taking it from. It's vital that we have appropriate procedures in place for IT, and they have been incredible between the town and the school. And we share this. This is just the town's 53%. The school carries another 47% of the cost. Right. In heating oil, you'll see an increase there. We're currently paying $1.63 a gallon or $1.64 for either heating oil or diesel fuel. That was a really great deal that we got coming out of when COVID began, and Phil and I were able to lock in a year ahead. We're not looking at such favorable numbers. The number that we used as an assumption here is $2.50 a gallon. We have not locked in as of yet. We're kind of watching the daily price to see if it comes down, but we use $2.50 as an assumption. So Donna and Phil and I are watching that closely and hoping it will come down. You heard it, you haven't heard anything lower, Donna?
Oh, it came down 6 cents.
So Phil and I thought it was best not to lock in at that high number, but to just kind of watch it, and we're not obligated to lock in by a certain date. So we're going to keep watching that and hope we can get that number down. You'll see when we get to Public Works, it's a much larger increase there. Old Town Hall maintenance. You'll see some items still missing there. I don't anticipate a large increase. We might see a slight increase in heating oil with that, and we maintain over the course of the winter, and we don't typically use that building. So that should be able to stay pretty flush. Senior Center operations, they have some small increases in items, but notably under Senior Center maintenance and miscellaneous, they have an increase of just under 11.5. And I know Donna can speak to half of it. One portion is they need to replace the dishwasher in the kitchen. It requires a commercial grade dishwasher in order for them to continue to use the facility. They're unable to host any events using the kitchen right now until that's replaced. And Donna, the other item?
Line striping and resurfacing the parking lot.
They want to line stripe and resurface the parking lot. So again, these were items that were under the CIP threshold. And so keeping within that dollar amount, we put them into our annual budget. So these are items that I would anticipate next year, we would see a decrease in. Going down to Eastern Highlands Health District, you'll see a decrease there. Our population decrease, and it's on a per capita basis. So that's where we're seeing a savings. Fire, main and hydrants, no increase in that department is anticipated. Building official, you will see the building system support. That increase represents the new point permit system and increases in fees there. Purchase service increase is a contract with the town of Bolton for their building official services that we contract. That current contract ends June 30th, 22. So we are working on renewing a contract, but it would, if all agreed upon, it would be a 3% increase over the current year. But with that contract would decrease the travel expense. Currently it's budgeted at $1,400. It would be a flat $1,200 per contract. It would be paid out per quarter, as they have a town vehicle in Bolton. And so we pay a certain dollar amount for the vehicle to be used, as opposed to a blanket miles per trip. All right, Public Works. Are you ready, folks? Here we go. Let's we can skip right down to the line item that is 311-133 driver, and it says was JR laborer. Troy is asking for an increase from a current laborer position to a driver. We have one snow plow contracted driver. So we have put one of our staff members into the position where they're doing that. Every time we put them in a position where they're driving a truck, we pay an upgrade to that position. And Troy feels that his department is best served with the position being a driver position. So that would leave us with 2 driver positions, if nothing in our staff were to change currently. In addition, Troy is asking for 2 additional positions, 1 additional full-time laborer and a mechanic. We've talked about the mechanic position in the past, and hoping that we could see savings moving forward in time of vehicles being out of service, work being able to be done, if we were able to perform some of these items in-house. It is not new. I think I shared with you last year. This would bring us in line with similar towns, most notably the town of Ashford, with 6 individuals in their department. So those are significant increases in staffing, and they would be reflected in insurance, those 2 positions. In addition, you will see some large increases, specifically in road maintenance, an additional $11,000. And that's some of, and Troy can speak to this if need be, some of the things we would do within that are if we were replacing driveway aprons, repairing catch basins, repairing around a catch basin, putting in curbing. Troy, this would also cover guardrails. Yes, Troy is probably going to stay muted. He's got a little bit of a cough. He's not going to share with us. So that would be covered under road maintenance, and that's significantly lacking in our current budget. So more often than Troy would like to, he has to put off some things that really need repair without significant resources. Troy is asking for an additional $15,000 in public works vehicle maintenance. Troy, if we had a mechanic, do you see being able to save a little bit there? Do you see needing one or the other, or?
I mean, I think there would be a savings. It's not going to be an instant savings, but there's certain things that, I mean, we have mechanics come to the garage. We just had another truck break down last week. So if we had a mechanic, those are the stuff that will be done in-house. Unfortunately, we don't have that. We don't have certain tools. One of the things that just happened on one of the trucks, it was some exhaust in the back of the motor. We didn't have a tool. If I got to go spend $1,000 to have a tool, then I don't have a mechanic to fix it. If we have a legit mechanic, he should be able to fix this. So there should be a savings at some point.
Thank you. All right, tree removal. We've talked a lot about trees, not just damaged trees from storms, any other kind of accident, any other weather-related issue, but mitigation of the emerald ash borer, mitigation of the gypsy moth issues. So Troy is asking for an additional $50,000, bringing that budget to $100,000. If you take a look, as of December 31st, we had spent $62,000. And we can't not take down hazardous trees between now and the end of the fiscal year. So I believe that is a warranted increase. We move on to the next page. You'll see that diesel increase specific, most notably in the public works. We break it down for diesel that's shared with the fire department. So you'll see significant increases in their budget, but as well in public works. So we're going to work to try to get that number down, but want to be realistic in our budgeting. Parts and supplies, Troy's asking for an additional $6,000 there. We've seen an increase, besides our trucks needing things, an increase cost from vendors. Like everyone else, the cost of goods and services has significantly gone up. So Troy was speaking about oil that he purchased a year ago being significantly more expensive today. And then you'll see some decreases in asphalt and crack seal. I'll touch on those further down. Equipment purchase, Troy's asking for an additional $10,000 for equipment purchase. And one of the things he'd like to purchase in there would be an additional Connex box. He bought one for his department that was able to store things because we just have a lack of space. This one would be helpful and used in times when we have evictions. So if there are evictions from property in town, the property comes to the town and we are obligated to hold that property for 15 days. We go through a legal process and then where the owner has the opportunity to make good on the money they owe and retrieve their property. And so we have to hold on to it until then. We don't have the storage capacity. And in some cases, they aren't items that we would want in the garage, depending on the nature of the facility they were removed from. So this would allow us to do that. And as you can imagine, with an increased moratorium on those things, we're seeing more and more. All right, snow, I went too fast. In the snow budget, you'll see an increase in snow removal contractor. I simply did a 5-year average of what we spent, and that number reflects a 5-year average for snow contracting. The salt increase is due to the treated salt that Troy has been purchasing and an increase in cost there. All right, the next program we call Chip Seal. I would recommend we rename this particular area to road maintenance. And the road maintenance would be consisting of 3 items. So we would no longer spend money on a truck rental, an oil roller and chipper, which we don't currently, but the dollars are in those line items. But this be made up of 3 items: the chip seal, asphalt, and crack seal. So in those previous items, we zeroed out the dollars for asphalt and crack seal and put it into one area for road maintenance. This is where we would take care of physical road structure with these components. And the increases in cost represented under stone, asphalt, and crack seal are significantly increased, but I believe these increases are necessary and based on Troy's advice to allow us to better invest in and maintain our infrastructure. I will tell you one of the items that's before us at CIP is a beta system. That's the name of the product, to give us an overall indicator of the status of our roads, to help us in planning roads, to give us some data as to why the roads we are repairing and in what capacity. And so it would give us a place to start, and they recommend every 5 years coming back in, doing another scan of our roads to be able to show us where our roads are and how we are best spending our dollars, so that it's going to give us a real solid picture of where our roads stand right now. Troy is been pretty consistent in knowing that we have some roads that are in real trouble we need to make some progress on. And you all know this summer, we really didn't get to tackle what we had wanted to due to the weather damage done to some other roads. So currently that shows a significant increase in public works. You can see that. And then other small increases were really to true up some of those line items. We move on to the cemetery. That stays flat, $2,000. Transfer station, you'll see an increase, a total increase in 29,625 projected dollars. Again, there's salary will be adjusted. The temporary help line item that I used a 5-year average, and that assists in covering for time off from either of our operators. And then trash removal, there's an increase of 20,000 and 5,000 in bulk waste. That's based on usage projections as well as an increase in the contract amount we currently pay. Social Security, we're looking at about a 5% increase in Social Security costs. We've left unemployment flat at $1,000. Right over your head there. Sorry, we went dark here. All right, health insurance. We anticipate no increase, no net increase. We haven't signed formally. We've given our verbal agreement to a 0 increase in medical insurance. We're looking at a 5% increase in dental and life insurance. So the dollar amount, this is a rough look at the employee insurance. Is that something that needs to be trued up? Is a decrease, and that's based on actual staff currently. The pension fund, there would be a slight decrease in that department. Workers' comp, Donna, did we say workers' comp? We thought would go up 3%, workers' comp and LAP.
Flat, we are in a rate stabilization of 3%, but our workers' comp is flat because we had a 3% decrease in the prior year.
Okay. So you see a slight increase in that overall department. Miscellaneous, I've asked for a small increase there. I would like us to begin to recognize it and have dollars to do so, to recognize our staff, those who have been here for significant amounts of time. I think it's about time we started putting some money into our staff directly and recognizing their accomplishments. We also use this for instance, we had a selectman retire from the board, and we gave bought a plaque for him. If somebody has either been ill, a significant loss, we would purchase flowers for a staff member. So that's what that dollar amount represents. Debt services, this is the ACO truck and SCBA gear, the bond on the library and their interest. And so that's a decrease going into this next fiscal year. And this is just a placeholder for capital expenditures. CIP is currently meeting. So I don't have any real figures for you there. The next page, you're going to see them represented a little bit different. I'm guessing this comes from our new software makeout. These are transfers out. Capital reserve is 0504. What makes up that large number, Donna? Is that just a placeholder?
It's part of the CIP.
But it's
year
just-
2, the plan that was approved last year.
Last
on
year,
year
right.
2.
So this will have some fluctuation depending on where CIP lands. This was last year's year 2, assuming it falls into this year. You will see the housing authority is 030507, flat at 2182. 510 is compensated absences at $10,000. The dog fund, this is our ACO budget. Tina's working hard to keep that flat. She found a way to do that, but that does not account for any potential increase in salary, as typically her salary follows that of the union. It's what we typically do. And so without her having those numbers, there's nothing reflected here. So there could be a slight increase in her department. Human services, you see a much larger increase. If there's a department, look, we've all been affected by COVID. Our human services department is seeing it front and center on a daily basis. So there are two things that make up a large portion of this increase. The two drivers are salary driven. The senior center, currently, we have a director and an assistant. The assistant is 10 hours a week, Jenny? Currently? No, 5 hours a week, sorry. Wrong department. 8 hours a week. And it is a non-union position. The senior center, however, since they opened, have had the luxury of having a volunteer staff the senior center on a daily basis. That incredibly hardworking, dedicated individual has decided to retire from that, and we can't blame her. And we were lucky to have somebody who would work in the senior center daily and not be paid for it. And so Jenny's asking for an increase, and she and I have talked about this at length. And the ask came to us from Wellington Senior Centers, Inc., asking the town to consider paying someone now to work in the senior center. And so increasing the human services assistant hours is our first attempt at seeing what that would look like. We would need to develop a job description. My thought is that this current non-union position would then need to be a union position. I think it would be very difficult for us to say that it didn't qualify, and this would give still hours in Jenny's department and then in the senior center, where currently the human services are utilizing space. And that has made a big difference during COVID with the needs from our senior community, for sure. And Jenny is asking for an increase in her salary more than what would be typical from the any contract increase. And I believe this dollar amount would bring it more in line with like-sized towns with similar services. So that would be a $19,912 increase there. And so that's the majority of the increase. The other is payroll benefits are increased in her department. And you'll see Jenny asked for some other items within her department. She's asking for a cell phone stipend. Jenny, you asked for $120 cell phone stipend. Were you looking at just $10 a month?
Well, the reason why I picked 120 was I spoke to another department head who has a phone stipend, and it was significantly more than I believe that I use my phone for the department. And that's why I opted with 120. I thought it was a nice round number. I use my phone for work a lot. I'm doing it right now, but not on a day-to-day basis like other departments like you or like Phil. So that's why I picked a smaller number.
I will tell you that without Jenny being in this building, there are a multitude of reasons why where she is a great location. One of the downsides is sometimes needing to reach out to her and contact her. She doesn't have a cell phone when she's here, or if she's working on something on the go between places. So she does answer her cell phone for us more than she would have ever before. So I don't think it's inappropriate to offer some compensation for the use of her cell phone in that capacity. So with that, those are the items that make up the increase. We have a lot to discuss. There's going to be changes in these numbers, even if we made no changes, but you can see the increase if we were to put forth this budget is significant. This is before CIP is complete at 15.8% or $584,196. So questions, comments? Liza?
It's a lot to process, right? So I think as we've discussed in the last couple of years, there is no doubt that all of these things are important and should be happening. Again, I think with all of our increases, we need to be prioritizing, because I do think it would be a very hard sell, and also maybe not the right time to, again, do it all in the same year. So we need to sort of prioritize. And I think, again, talk about sort of like how CIP does a 5-year plan. I kind of think we need to do an unofficial 5-year plan as well with the department heads, so that we can build up to some of the things that are going to be more longer term increases. So, so I think that's sort of where the conversations should kind of start with, what are the definite priorities in each of these departments, and maybe there's just one and that's it for each department, and maybe there's a couple that we need to prioritize, and then others we need to look at staggering some of these increases again for next year and the year out.
Jim?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of information to digest here, and a lot of need. I don't dispute that. I think Liza made a good point about where's that long-term goal? Where do you want to be? And you can't take that big jump all at once, particularly at this time. Everybody's feeling the pinch, particularly the taxpayers of Wellington. We're all feeling that in terms of the economy, in terms of inflation, in terms of nobody's getting the salary increases that they want, mainly because of inflation's eating it up. So there's a lot to digest here. I like to digest this a little bit more, and then come back with some pointed questions, and then we'll see where we go from here.
You do have some of, your department heads either in the room or on the line. Donna, Janice, and Walter are here in the room. Troy, Jenny, Robin, and Tina are on the line. And you did have an opportunity to look at some of the items they had sent forward. Do you have any questions about the things that they had shared with us before? Any guidance that you can give and information you might want moving forward, so that we can make sure we get all of that to you?
I'm interested in some of the public works comments and all that, like, tree removal. Be interested to know where that $50,000 is planned on being spent. I know we've used a combination of contractors and things like that. It seems to me that, that's very specialized equipment. That's very specialized training that you would want. So I'm wondering why we're going in that direction. I'd like a little more information about that. I like the breaking out of the chip seal and all that stuff into generic road maintenance. There's a whole bunch of things involved with road maintenance, and I know we're trying to go in a different direction with crack sealing and stuff like that, and the apron repair. I also wondering about the hiring of a mechanic. I know a lot of companies have gone to leasing of vehicles. I mean, they got rid of the mechanic shop, so I'm wondering why we're going in the opposite direction that others are going. But I haven't really given much thought about that yet. But those are the type of questions I'm going to ask probably right off on public works. So maybe you don't have to answer it now, but maybe you could think a little bit about it and respond a little bit later.
Bring it as answers. I can tell you some of the $50,000 would go to the actual tree removal, not equipment or not training. It would not be our.
Just us hiring
Would just be the amount of trees that need to come down. Troy has gotten a quote to do a large swath area, and this represents some of those dollars, and he's talked to us a little bit about it moving forward. And Jim, I know when you talk about some people have gone to leasing vehicles, we lease our vehicles, but not in the same way you would lease your private vehicle. It's just the means to finance. So we own them. We don't turn them back in when we're done. So there's no one to come in and do the maintenance. There is some warranty on the vehicles and some things that are covered on the newer vehicles we have. But almost everything we have in repair, we have to send out because we don't have a mechanic. We had someone in-house that had some mechanic skills, but was not a true mechanic. And Brent does a great job for us. I don't want to, diminish what he does do, but he doesn't have the capacity to do as much as if we had a mechanic on hand. And so I'll let, Troy either today or when we meet again, touch on any of those other items.
Yeah, I think we just need to think about that, because I mean, even if you hired a full-time mechanic, there are very specialized tools and equipment that are needed, particularly when handling trucks. They're all much bigger and more expensive handling tools and equipment. And does that make sense to hire that person by that level of capital and tools, to then support our trucks? Or, does it make sense to just, team up and, I don't know, maybe you bring them a schedule of, bring them all in like the fire department does. I mean, they have trucks as well, and they manage it as well. Just something to think about. That's all.
Liza?
Yeah, and I think we had this conversation last year. So I know Troy's gonna love hearing it again, but again, prioritizing the staffing. I think, again, I think we need to look at it as a phased staffing plan. And instead of, is it 2 or 3 positions this year?
One upgraded.
Okay, so yeah, so I feel like again, a proposal of 1 new position at a time seems more reasonable and like something that we can digest and figure out how to make sense of and propose that. I think it's hard to do it all at once within the same budget. So so that's been my recommendation the last couple of years. I think, the expenses that we've been talking about the last 2 years, tree and road maintenance, those things, we absolutely have to put our money there, because we have had issues all year, especially with trees coming down and knocking out power and people being out of power for 4 or 5 days. We have got to make sure that we're getting a handle on that in a much better way. And same thing with road maintenance. So, those are pretty big priorities. And I do think putting more dollars there is very important. And at the same time, I understand we need to have the staffing to be able to do that. So if we're going to increase the amount of road work that we're going to do, we have to make sure that our staffing is going to support the amount of road work we're proposing to fund. So I do understand that, but I do think we have to, again, ask for a phased implementation of increasing staff.
And I think it's important, Troy came to us a year ago and said he needed a lot more money for trees. We cut it to only a $25,000 increase, which seems like a lot to some, and it barely put a dent in what we know we needed. And so I just want us to be mindful of the professionalism and expertise he brings to the job, and especially on things like that. There is certainly, it's subjective, the number of employees we need. Troy knows what he's doing and believes that he could get more accomplished and more in line with more employees. But things like trees and the road maintenance, this is what we pay him to do. And so I think we learned a big lesson last year on really taking the frugal way out on trees. I don't think we're the only town who got caught in that either. So I hear you. If I had to choose, I know where I'd go with if we thought we could only afford an additional employee, or even 1.5 or 0.5. I think we get the most use out of an additional laborer to start, because that would give us very clear cut work all year round. But being in the day-to-day operations, I can see the need and why the request is made again for a mechanic. So we meet again next Monday at 5:30. I guess I would ask if you have any specific questions that you need clarification on, if you can forward those on to Kelsey, and we'll work with our department heads with anything that we need clarifying from them so that we're prepared for that meeting and it can be a productive discussion. And in the meantime, Don and I will still be working more on budgets and salaries. And until we have a ratified contract, you won't hear me speak specifically of what those increases may or may not be across the board of salaries. So if I'm vague, I apologize. We don't want to jeopardize the negotiation process. All right, anything further, Jim? Liza?
I just
No,
want
I'm
to say,
good.
I want to say thank you to all the department heads for all their work. Budget season is so stressful and hard for everybody. And always, I know that the department heads are probably putting these numbers down on paper and concerned about any like backlash or frustration or whatever that comes along with asking for increased funding. But I really appreciate the work. And I do want to reiterate that I always advocate, and Erica can back me up on this because I think I say it every year. I always advocate for staff putting forth a proposal for what they think they need in order to run their department optimally. Doesn't mean that we can afford that, but it does mean that we want to hear what that number would be in an ideal world so that when we are making decisions on what to actually push forward, we know that we are, we know what we're doing, right? So I really appreciate the work and I thank you all so much for taking the time to be thoughtful and put all this stuff on paper. So thanks again.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other, look at the time, because I can't see across the room. Seeing no other discussion or business on our agenda, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
The non-debatable matter, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion.
Thank you.
It's 6:29, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.